start this thing. Hello everyone, Lucas Arnold here. Doing some character concepting tonight. Um, did a little bit last week, but kind of switching things up a little bit and a little bit more broader. I'm going to go into a little bit of the world itself and kind of explore um, elements of the world that it would influence this group, that would influence this character, and so we can kind of make logical decisions for what this character would be like. And anyone who joins in, uh, please join in the concepting as well. You know, always good to have tons of ideas that we can whittle down into the final project. So I'm going to put some music back on, a little bit lower than before. And let's see, get that going. Where is it? Here we go. Yeah, that's probably good. If anybody gets on, just let me know if it's too much, too little. We can go from there. But I think that's a good level for right now. Okay. Okay, so Wasumu Village. This is where our character will be from. But I'm probably going to have to back up and go a little bit broader in order to kind of explain this portion. Obviously, I've done a little bit of concepting here already, but I'm going to do a little bit more. We're going to pull some references in and add some more to this. These are all just kind of preliminary ideas, nothing set in stone. But let's get into it. So, the world, which I'm starting to develop the full thing. Here's a content map that I've started currently, but I'm not quite finished with it yet. I've mainly have ideas for specific regions in the area, and one of those regions is a jungle terrain, kind of a jungle area. I don't have a name yet for the full area. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of that today, but for now, we'll just call it the jungle. And in this, the main concept that I come up with is a city that is in the midst of a jungle, kind of. It's a mountainous jungle, and it's on in the midst of the mountains near a ravine. And coming up from this ravine, casting a large shadow over the city, is a giant fang. Um, the rumor is, and the lore of the world and of the city is that a battle was fought long ago between the gods, between and in that area specifically, it was a battle between the Storm Lord and the Serpent King. And the champion of the Serpent King, a giant serpent or basilisk, um, was slain. And the fang, one of the fangs was broken off, but the other one protrudes from the ground into the sky. And a lot of things happened since then, but this city was constructed, and as well as a factory of sorts built at the base of that fang to harvest the fossilized venom to be used in a number of medicinal purposes and magical purposes. And the world itself it's a fantasy setting. and fantasy setting, and magic is in the world. I really like how the Monster Garden has been doing his magic, and so I'm trying to utilize something akin to that, where there is a lot of visual reference for those who would be using magic, um, and that there's a cost. But for loosely right now, what it is that there is magic in the world. There's mana that can be brought in and channeled into through somebody to be cast. And in the world, there are places that have a large amount of this mana, like concentrated areas, and this is one of them, having just a ton of magic revolving around the serpent and basilisk itself. That and so obviously they're building this factory around the base. They're um, siphoning out some of that fossilized venom from the fossil. But the other fang, was broken off in the battle, and the venom basically poured into the land, carving these ravines into the jungle and really kind of corrupting what they call the floor. Um, and it caused a lot of mutation and odd, like, combining of creatures and even new creatures that just kind of came to be through the magical and essence of this venom that seeped into the floor. And the floor itself is known to be that if you spend long periods of time there, you yourself will be corrupted by it. You can be just being around it. The very air has this kind of toxic, magical uh, force, and if you spend long periods of time there, you could, have mutation. You could have um, just unpredictable things start to occur to you and change you. Um, that being said, this Wasumu village is very close to the floor. It is very close to the floor, but because it is toxic, these people live in the trees. They live in these very tall, like redwood tall type trees, and they have made their home to be in that environment, to get off of the floor and further away from this just toxic stuff. And they're kind of a hidden faction. They themselves, their culture is based around the worship of spiders, and it is very off-putting to a lot of people, and so they tend to be pretty ostracized, um, for the most part, mainly because most people who are known to be associated with spiders tend to not be very good and tend to be, kind of like spiders. They're just known, seen as creepy, and these. Um, it's kind of like Loth from the D&D world, or from the Forbidden Realms series in that lore, where the Drow, or the Dark Elves, are an evil race, and they're known for being that way. Um, but this Wasumu village, they are actually not an evil group. Um, they are not malicious. They're not, and for the most part, they are scavengers. They are harvesters and hunters, but they do, um, you know, have these bonds with spiders. And so that is kind of the basis for this character. That's where it kind of is. And so now I'm kind of exploring what this group would be like, so that's, and I've been doing some exploration. I knew I wanted them to kind of be offset from the city. The city itself, it was built like I said, around that fang. But um, before that city was even built, there were numerous temples of worshippers of the Serpent King who had also built temples and things like that around the base of that skull to worship and stuff. And those are long since gone. But there is a known religious presence um, that follows the Serpent King in this area, and that's a little bit more well known just because of the geography and the people there. Like, it's known to be a serpent, that fossil, and so there's going to be people that worship that as a something that they look to, whereas the spider faction is not necessarily at odds with the serpent um, clan, but they're just not as well known, and so therefore they're viewed as pretty um, odd and just off-putting. So, anyways, that's where they live here. It's also a very small group. Now, I would say, I think in this, the serpent group would be, I don't know, because the idea I am kind of playing around with too is that would some of these serpent-like people, or the people who worship the Serpent King, would they want to change themselves to kind of be more serpentine? And I think some of them would, definitely. But is it one of those things that they think that that form is the highest form of worship and the best thing ever, and so they detest any other races or anyone who would want to remain human? Or can they coexist? Can they be codependent? I think that they have to coexist and be codependent because they have to work with the city as well, um, in order to have access to this place of worship, um, because it is obviously held under guard, having had that factory placed at the base of that fang. Excuse me, just need to get a drink of water. But that doesn't necessarily have a ton to do with this. So one of the things that I've worked out, let's get back to the Wasumu village. I kind of worked out that they were more in a more obscure group, but where are they going to be? And I like this idea of them being near the floor but not on it. You know, be somewhere where people wouldn't go, because obviously people are not going to go to the floor because long exposure times, you end up having these side effects, these really bad side effects. But the people of Wasumu Village also can't be near the floor, or they will also experience mutations. Now, some people don't really mind the mutations, and also in this world, whenever you this is also borrowed from the Monster Garden, and I really enjoy it. Whenever you cast spells, it takes a toll on your body, and it slowly starts to change you. He had the example of a fire mage who has smoke that just pours out of his face. So visually, you can immediately tell if somebody is a magic user or not. I think that is so cool and so interesting, especially when we're talking about a visual medium. I'm definitely wanting to make these stories be animated, and so that's the end goal there. But um, so I really like that idea, and I want to incorporate it. Um, so magic can cause these mutations, but also in this specific area, being near the floor does that, and it would change your body like that. Some people don't mind. Some people just do it anyways. They don't care. Kind of like how those who practice magic, they just accept that it's going to come with what they're wanting to do. It does limit how many people choose to do magic, which I think is another bonus to having this function, because it keeps everyone from just being able to use magic and just having a nothing but magic world. Um, but some people care, some people don't. So that being said, there are some in Wasumu Village who don't care whether they mutate or not, and that comes into effect because if they are, but the majority do, so they're going to be living in the trees. But if they do live in the trees, where do they get their food? Where do they get the things, their supplies? Where do they get what they need? And that's where them being hunters and gatherers, I think, comes in. Right here on the bottom right of the screen, I've drawn a harvester spider. So an idea that I had is that there is uh, a group within Wasumu Village that are called the Harvesters, and they have these spider steeds that they then ride into the floor and surrounding areas to harvest things that they need, food. Um, they'll hunt for typically it'll be, I guess, birds, things that would not spend a whole lot of time on the floor. Sometimes they do, will partake in things on the floor and just risk, you know, if is this thing going to cause me to mutate or not? Because some of the things the mutations are not always ugly. Some of them are very beautiful. Deer that have just grown extra long limbs, that kind of thing. Um, so you'll have these harvesters, and they have these cargo nets that have been strapped underneath them. Um, and I'm kind of working on the design of what this would look like, what the saddles would look like, how the riders ride them, how do they harvest things. This here is a harvest tracker. It's something that they keep on their wrist and they can set in order to keep track of how long they've been in the floor so that they don't spend too much time down there. And then they have a certain amount of time that they have to quarantine before they can go back. But having this faction built around spiders, so okay, if there's spiders, do they have spiders that are like steeds? Do they have spiders that can be like cattle? Like, one of the things I thought is, can you have some that they use to spin webs, like you would have sheep to get wool? And if so, I had this thought of the homes being these kind of spider egg shaped things that are stuck to the sides of these giant trees with these floors built underneath them. That way, they're just very sturdy. I like this idea. I think what I'll probably do is mix and match. So you have these like wooden houses that are then stuck and glued on with the spider web. Um, but yeah, so the idea now is kind of figuring out a design for what these riders would look like. Um, so you're gonna have harvesters, and then you're gonna have hunters. And I'm thinking the hunters will um, ride kind of like a big jumping spider. Those like tiny or more compact looking spiders that are like very fuzzy and stuff, and they move so quickly. I thought that those would be pretty cool for them to be on for hunting. And so, having distinct looks and tools for the hunters versus the harvesters. I think the main protagonist for the short that I'm working on would be a hunter. Um, but we can also look and see what other jobs and occupations would be within this group. Um, Definitely open to a lot. So let's just kind of let me go through some of this. So I will say the village is pretty small relatively. Like, I think there's probably got to be three, I don't know. what is big is a village? What, 500 people, something like that? Um, I guess in olden times too, it's also a lot different in kind of a. I would think probably in the realm of 3 to 500 people. That's not terribly huge. It's not like a city of tens of thousands, but it is enough for a populace where you can have a functioning society with multiple occupations, jobs, um, having resources to make things like this. So you have these riders and the spiders, but you have to either have people to make or to buy the saddles. And then, well, you have to have something to custom fit them to that because this is a very specialized steed, as well as the cargo nets. So, yeah, I think there's got to at least be close to 500 people. Um, so, somewhat small. I said rebuilding because I think that I think there is some history with the serpent acolytes because of their proximity to um, just that relic of theirs. So I think that there is something like that, and the serpent faction is going to be much larger, especially in this area, because of their proximity to that skull. It just makes sense that when you have something like that, they're going to flock to it and rally around it. Humble and shy. Yeah, they just kind of keep to themselves more, but they are very like not a lot of fluff. They do things for function mostly. This thing is not supposed to be. I want it to kind of be like a bare bones thing, and it's really just functional. They're not really flowery types of people. Um, I think that there are, yeah, they have habitats solely in the floor as far as like their village is concerned. They do have people that enter into the city. They're nearby to establish trade and connections. So they're kind of underground, but not shady, if that makes sense. It's just they keep a low profile because they're often mistaken as being shady or nefarious. Tree dwellers, foragers, um, yeah, only slight mutations because they're suspended so far above the floor. So they're not in full exposure. So yeah, and then here I just kind of listed some spider elements that we could implement into visuals. Poison webs, hunters, snares, harvesters, climbing, burrowing, and listing like some spider characteristics as well. Burrowing. There's some weird spiders that like cover themselves in dirt and wait to ambush prey. Really weird, but pretty sweet. Skittering eyes, legs hidden, catacombs. I had this idea that there being catacombs, and I think there probably still is. Um, like from long, long ago, like in the floor, there's some catacombs from this faction back in their heyday when they were, you know, killing it and were a lot bigger. Another thing that I thought about is them using a lot of nature in their design because obviously they're living in trees, so it's like a big thing, um, and they're foraging in a lot of natural stuff. So um, that's going to be a big thing. So let's start getting into some references because I think that that's going to be very helpful. So let me grab use pure ref here. We'll start pulling some references down and looking into this. And some of these will apply to like some groups of this faction and some won't, but there will be some overall things. So let me pull what I have from the harvesters. I did have some reference images of like some large animal writing, because if they're writing these harvesters, we're going to need some references for writing those. And I thought the camel stuff was cool because they have some very unique saddles that go with them. And so, let's see, here was one of the saddles. So these are like really tall up, I guess, to go around the hump of the camel mostly. But I just like the way that it, because if you look at, like, even here, if you look at this, harvestman spider, and I'll pull up another picture of one. Yeah, something like this. See how like flat this is across the top? So if you're writing this, like let's say that this is the size of a human right here, or even like this section right here. See how it's a little darker? Let's say that's the saddle. Your legs can't go around the body like it would a horse because it's too wide. Like it slopes at a much, like the degree, the angle of the back does not change as drastically as it does a horse. And so I was hoping to get some pictures of like elephants and stuff, but then I realized that they still can slide their legs over them pretty easily. So your foot would be like right here, and your leg would be, you'd be almost doing the splits, right? Like trying to sit on something like this. So that's why this thing is interesting, because it elevates you above the back, and so it gives you room to have your legs be up. So I might do something like that just to make it look a little bit more visually accurate and appealing. There was, let's see, there was another. Oh yeah, this was really cool. This is a little bit more ornate. Um, so I don't want to get like flashy with it, because it's also very rustic. So, um, but I thought that one was really cool. This looks like more ornate and kind of ridiculous, but it looks very functional as well, because you have, your legs come off the side, and it's very easily something to hold on to. And I like the backrest look for the harvesters especially, because it's just you're probably going to be on it for a lot longer, and you're not going to need to be doing like quick movements or you're going to want to make it comfortable, whereas the hunters are going to probably be hunched and like stealthing around and then trying to go in quick, so they're going to be moving their body a lot more, whereas harvesters are going to be pretty much just riding pretty still. So excuse me, I think that that's going to be pretty cool, at least a simplified version of that. And then I like this long handle as like maybe a pole to hold on to and something to attach the reins to. But we'll see. We might not need something like that. We might just need something simple, like maybe even a little T-cross here that you can wrap the reins around. Because one thing I think that they're going to have, another reference that I had that it just looked so cool, is this reference here. And I don't know who the artist is, because I think I got this off Pinterest. Otherwise, I would shout them out. Like it a lot. Overall, and kind of as a cool like theme for the floor of what I'm looking for. But the main reason I liked it for the Harvestman was this hook. Because I think in writing these spiders, they would need something to like reach out and hook something in order to pull it towards them and slip it into their cargo net, whether that be vines that have fruit on them or um, whatever else they could find. Um, so I like that kind of hook and that being a tool that they use. They will also be outfitted with at least some form of weaponry because the jungle is very dangerous, especially on the floor. Um, so those are some references there for mostly the Harvestmen. And then here's some general stuff that I thought would be pretty cool. So I like the feet wraps, especially as like shoes. And I think I showed this on stream the other day. Um, Let me grab the other picture of it because I think this is a better picture. Um, yeah, right here. So having these kinds of feet wraps, but made of these big leaves that you would wrap your feet in. I think that that would be a really cool design for the shoes. Oh yeah, and then just another little small thing of slipping a little knife in there, because these guys are definitely more resourceful, not necessarily trusting. So, you know, have an extra blade on you would be quite apt for them. Let me get back to some of the other costume design stuff. Okay. Let's see. For sumo, I have. Sorry, I'm trying to get this other clothing reference. I just don't remember where I put it. So one of the things that I like, I remember listening to some people talk, some snipers talking, and watch them go through. You know, they were talking about training and stuff, and one of the things they do is they have to make their own ghillie suit, and the whole idea behind the ghillie suit is to break up your silhouette so that you're not seen as a human shape, because that's really what gives you away. And so one thing I thought about in there in the design of these uh, people is to have first maybe some leather armor, doing like some shoulder cap sleeves, but something a little bit more agile. Um, but that's not where I was looking before. Where would this be? Factions was okay. Here it is. Cool. Um, I like the idea of going kind of with a nature theme, having some sort of bark incorporated, and I think that this makes the most sense, having some sort of like guards on the forearms and the shins. I think that would look pretty sweet. That obviously bark is not super strong, but we can give some liberties with it. This is a fantasy world after all, so um, I think that that would visually just look really cool to have the gauntlets of that, plus be very resourceful. But kind of going back to the breaking up the silhouette. I like how this kind of does that, but I just don't like the bark. I don't think it looks as good. And so I thought, what if they had these kind of shawls, but the shawls, um, like maybe they have, let me pull it up. Maybe they have these kind of like shoulder armor stuff here and here, this kind of stuff. But they also have a shawl that they weave using the spider webbing. And then they take leaves from the forest and coat that shawl in the leaves, sticking it to the web. And then that creates kind of this like chaotic pattern, especially around their shoulders and arms, in this area, that would break up kind of the silhouette of the person. Um, and then they could even just, I don't know, depending on the style, they could lay flat against their spider, and then it would just look like the spider had, some leaves on them or something like that. But it could be kind of a stealth option, and I think it would look really cool. Um, so I think I'm gonna try some of this and kind of see what we get. Um, Having trouble with the face, like the mask. Um, I definitely think I want to have something more like something that covers the face and masks their identity. I think that is something about them being a little bit more reserved, a little bit more wary and shy. They would seek to conceal themselves. And let's see, I'll pull up what we did in the last stream. Let's see. We've got, this is one of the first ones, and it's just, I like the idea of the spider eye look, but it just is not working. It does not look good, and part of it's just, my drawing skills. But I'm just not a huge fan of that, or that one, obviously, either. Um, oh yeah, I forgot about this. This is a little bit interesting. So this was supposed to be kind of like a shawl as well, and this was meant to look like the legs of a spider around the outside. It looks a little too formal and flowery for what I'm thinking, though. Like, it's definitely more ornate than it is functional. All right, and then this was kind of another place we ended up. It's very simplified. I was trying to get the four lower eyes, but it ends up looking more like a smile with the nose and stuff. It just looks like a face, and so it just really doesn't work. I'm not a fan of it. So, anyways, I did think that there's an idea of having like almost a tribal mask and having the holes be, for the eyes, and maybe just being a full face mask, and the shawl is a shawl, not a cowl, because at first I was thinking a cowl that would like cover the lower half of the face. um, I think maybe doing this instead would look really cool. um, yeah, I think I'm gonna try for something like that, and then maybe, I don't know. We'll see about a hood. Maybe not. But anyways, um, yeah. So let's get into let's get into some drawing. Let's draw some. close that. Wait. Close that. Close that. Okay, I'm gonna do a new thing here. Let's go with this, and let's do. All right, harvesters. So let's start just kind of doing a few. Let me get a little bit of some reference going here. Factions. Sumu. Let's do. Caps lock. Harvester. Ideation. Harvester. Ideation. One. Cool. Alright. So let's start just kind of doing a few gesture stuff and see where we get from there. Okay, so kind of do some like reins in this hand. Actually, let's take this. extending his arm out. So like, well, I'm already liking this. Cool, I'm just like grabbing a vine that has like a bunch of bananas on it or something, right? I don't know. I know bananas don't grow on vines, but you know, whatever. Anyways, kind of reaching out. We'd have the. This should just kind of be a simple, like, saddle. So there's nothing fancy about this one. Maybe kind of more like a horse saddle or something. So, yeah. Within my fatal mistake. Drew it on the background. Of course. It's fine. We'll just take this. Fill. Fill that with white. Okay. Take this. Let's do our selection tool. That's good. Delete that. Ah, too far. Is that like necessary to do this? I just like to keep things clean in case I'm like, you know, I want to delete, you know, something but leave the rest, or change something a little bit, or duplicate something. It's just a lot easier to do that. So let's just do that. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and do another quick sketch. Some of us have like, let's see, hold on. Let's do a line like that, a line like that. And so let's like have the harvester be coming head first down the. And actually, see, this is where it's helpful because now I can just zoom this up. It's not going to be the greatest as far as pixels go, but you know, I really just need this as a reference point to then draw the harvester. So okay, so there it is. Go ahead and put eyes on this bad boy so you can kind of see the kind of perspective. Okay, and so from this, instead of that, I'm gonna go ahead and change the layer there. Let's zoom in. So it'd be kind of like leaned way, way back. Almost like standing up. But then head looking forward a bit. So let's try for something like that. There. Let's see. Could be kind of trying to balance himself, so arms out. Let's see. Probably legs curled up behind. That kind of look. For this one, like, probably not even gonna see that foot, just like slightly. Maybe even like reaching out in front with the staff to like brace himself. Oh, no, no, no. Better yet. I got it. I got it. So I'm gonna start this over. Um, start this over. Let me do like some lines here for the legs. It's like up in the air, and then this one's like coming straight towards almost. Like coming towards camera. And this one will be out. Like about to step down. So it's coming in behind. And it's stepping there. Okay. But now let's back out just a little bit, and then we're gonna take this up. Again, we're gonna lose a lot of quality when we do this, but that's okay because I'm really just wanting to focus on the character there. And actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take off all of this unnecessary stuff. Take it there. And we'll go back up to this layer. Okay. And so for this one, it's going to be kind of like a, almost like he's sliding down the tree like this and kind of surfing. You know what I mean? So like he's going to have this arm out here. Almost going to be like Captain America pose, like arms outstretched type thing. Because it'll be like a, okay, hold on, so it could be that, because the hips are still going to be this way. That leg's going to be like that. Because the hook is going to be kind of like back here, hanging onto one of the like harness straps type thing. It's like one of the straps for the what's it called? The cargo net. So it's like he's holding on to it from that. Also, looking forward, kind of down. So yeah, kind of like back bend a little bit. Yeah, like that. Cool. And obviously this hand with the reins. And the reins go here on these front mandibles. They hook up with that. So yeah, I'm kind of liking. At least these gestures are pretty cool. So let's start getting a little bit more into. Now I kind of did some warm-up drawing. Let's do some costume. So let me do, I'm gonna grab a reference and then just do a straight on. Actually, let's do side view. Okay. All right. Okay. So. Okay. Let's see. Really makes it look awkward right there. Just kind of trying to get a little bit of anatomy on here first before we. Alright, so I want to kind of do.
guess most people would have like a. Ah. Okay. I think you'd have his leg bent a little bit more, but his a little too large. Let me. I'm gonna pull up just a quick reference. Let me see. Okay.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay. Let's just change a few things here. Let's take this. And we're just gonna rotate that out slightly. Okay. And then we're gonna take this. And we're going to. Okay. Gonna rotate it like so. Okay. Erase this. There we go. That's more interesting. Okay. And this forms a bit too thick. I guess it wasn't terrible, but I do think this bicep is too long. But again, don't need to be catching up. need to get caught up in all the details. Just get it down. Okay. Okay. So now this is like out a little bit. Okay. Here. Okay. Now these legs, that's really the main thing that's so off. And these the hips. Okay. Okay, that's gonna be much lower. So, okay. But with this, so we need to start putting clothes and stuff over. Let me do this. Because this needs to be slightly smaller. And we need to shift this to be a little bit more like down, looking down. And forward. Okay. Cool. Okay. Sorry, I'm kind of trying to get form down because I'm really just kind of learning how to do figures. Just okay. Alright, that's good enough for that. Oh, gosh. Every time. Oh man, has it been on there the whole time? Man, I hate it when that happens. Okay. Wand. That. Delete. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take these two layers, merge them, add another one to put down here. I'm going to fill that one with white, and I'm going to lock this layer for everything. Now, should not be able to select it from like here. Nope, didn't do anything. Won't do anything. Perfect. Cool. Okay. Okay, let's go on here. Except that knee is way too long. Okay. That's to here. Okay. Basic anatomy shape. That pelvis really needs to be shifted. Back a bit. Okay. There you go. Okay, either way. Let's get to the actual clothes and masks and stuff. So, let's pull up the references again. And I'm going to shift these to another screen so I can just reference them, but they're kind of out of the way. Okay. So, let's do some of these. I'm going to do a layer on top of this. I'm going to take this layer and drop it down to like a 16% opacity. Cool. Now let's start with this. Let's start with these bracers because I think those would be pretty cool. These are going to be like, maybe it has parts of it like shooting off the elbows. Yeah, those things would look pretty sweet. And so on the inner, it just kind of comes in, but on the back side, you see some of it shooting out. Yeah, I like those. And then I think, I don't know, I had kind of thought too, maybe, that every single part of them would be covered because of them trying to keep their exposure to the floor to a minimum. So they probably would have something on their hands, just like gloves. And probably leather, I would think. So just do some leather gloves and then maybe have some stitching down the sides, on the thumb. Obviously, we can get into the details of it right now. That'll be for the 3D modeling, but yeah. Now, as for the mask, I'm gonna draw something here.
out from the face.
Okay, so something. It's like a large mask.
Probably has straps here on the sides that wrap around the back of the head. And kind of tribal-esque.
And I think maybe we'll do some like different mask designs for different groups. Like the harvesters will have a different one than the hunters. So, I'll have to think on that. For now, I'm just gonna do the. I'm gonna do the hunter mask because I've got the idea for that.
Which are just two big eyes. That will be actually what they actually look through. And then the four smaller eyes on either side. And it does kind of look like a face. And then from there we could just do some like leg markings just to further communicate that it's a spider.
I don't know, something like that. That looks pretty cool. I'll probably do another. I'll do a detailed shot of this at another point, but no, let's not do that.
Maybe
Hmm. Maybe something like that, but maybe it goes like all the way up here. Yes, that looks cool. So then I think having
the shawl, and it will be just kind of leaves. All sorts of manners of leaves and stuff, just really playing into that. Okay. This will just be more like leather garments. Here we have the kind of waistband. And this is kind of a harness, I think, to hook them in. Because since they're spiders, they can go upside down, they can go, straight up trees, so in order for these harvesters to hold on, they've got this harness that they use that just latches them to the saddle. So it's the individual belt and everything, but then I've got these tethers that come off and latch into the actual harness. And so for the pants, I think actually like real balloon type pants all the way up until like here at the ankles. These are going to be the leaf wraps. So you'll have the top cinch here. It's really just like leaves. So we'll see. Let's take that down. steps, and then they kind of come around and wrap around the foot. So those go out. Okay. This is also going to be a kind of wrapped shirt. Okay, just some squiggly stuff for some leaves here and foliage that kind of just breaks up the look. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm liking this. I mean, at least for a first run at a character. I mean, first run at it, kind of like a outfit. This thing will be a pain to animate. Cool. And then they will have their harvester stick. Harvester's hook. Okay. Yeah, I think we got some good headway tonight. I think we're gonna call it there. So yeah, I'm liking the direction of this. I'm liking the functionality of it. The hook, the saddle on the spider with the harness, uh, the kind of leaf webbing shawl to kind of break up the silhouette, and then utilizing what they have around them in the bark and the leaves. And this mask is looking a ton better than what I had previously, so I'm liking it. think it's turning out pretty well. All right. Well, we're gonna end it there for the evening, and yeah, we'll do another stream next week.